these physical bodies. In fact, it's explained that the soul now, being in a hot area, is atomic in size. But when a person takes Bhakti Yoga seriously and they get the opportunity to earn the mercy or get the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by help of the spiritual master, and Krishna says, now you can come home to the spiritual world. The same soul expands to its Siddha Swarup, its original form. So it's not little anymore at that time. And it gets to perform, the soul gets to relate to and to perform loving devotional service unto the divine couple by serving others who are there in the spiritual world, our original home. So Srila Prabhupada, by his mercy, has come and written and taught and quoted from the Parampara just to get us to see the right place to head, to go back. Srila Prabhupada says the gross materialists cannot see anything beyond the gross material body. So to them, a person that's like that is just a question of satisfying their senses only. And Srila Prabhupada divides it into concentrated and extended selfishness. Selfishness, looking at oneself. Concentrated selfishness, he says, centers around the personal body, what to eat, where to live, shelter, food, and clothing. The main things. Now, it takes a while for a person to advance to the point where they begin to ask the intelligent questions. Who am I? Why am I in this place? Why is there so much suffering around me? Why am I myself suffering? And how to get out of here? Those are the intelligent questions that, when put out, leads one to get the answers. And the answers, now we understand. So some of us went to different religions to try to find answers. I know I was one of them. Finally, come to Krishna consciousness, the answers are all there. Not only are the answers there, but there's even more that can be added that we didn't know. So concentrated selfishness is about satisfying the body, the physical body of a person. And Srila Prabhupada says the lower animals even do that. The dogs, animals, other animals, birds, insects, apparently all day they seem to be going around searching for food to keep them going. Extended selfishness, that's manifested in human society, Srila Prabhupada says. And it centers around how to keep the family okay, concerns about the society, concerns about the community, the nation, and the planet. But still, the aim is how, in the end, my body will be okay. Gross bodily comfort. Then Srila Prabhupada says, above these gross materialists are those who bring about things from the mind. Still not spiritual, though. Making poetry, philosophy, propagating some ism, some idea. Again, the aim is limited to the body and the mind. Using the mind to see some things that would satisfy the body. Srila Prabhupada explains that all of these are lower than the position of the spirit soul. Above the body and the mind is the dormant spirit soul. Why did he say dormant? In one lecture that I heard, Srila Prabhupada was questioning his disciples. And he said, did I induce you with money to get you to take the Krishna consciousness? He asked similar questions, about 3 of them along the same line. And the devotees answered, no. Then he said, but why did you follow me then? Then he answered it himself. It's because Krishna consciousness is there. Love of Krishna is there, but it's dormant. And all I did was awaken the dormant spiritual soul. She says here again, awaken the dormant spiritual soul. Above the body and the mind is the dormant spiritual soul whose absence from the body Mm. When it's out there, out of the body, then the mind doesn't work, the body doesn't work, and we call it death, of course. Everything becomes null and void. So we take it for granted because we've heard it in so many ways, but less intelligent people, and the majority of people in the world, don't have this kind of information about the needs of the soul. So they don't understand. Everybody would tell you something is wrong, but to put a finger on it, they may blame other people, but they don't realize that when we don't satisfy the needs of the soul, we will never be happy. Why? Because happiness is connected with the soul. True happiness is connected with the soul. And if we try to find somebody else, some happiness outside of the soul, it's never satisfying. In fact, Srila Prabhupada said, we will only be trying to satisfy our senses, but we will not get the needs of the soul met. So, the spirit soul's needs must be fulfilled. And he gives an example, cleansing the cage of a bird. The bird is in the cage. The bird needs to be satisfied. The things to do to satisfy the bird have to be provided to the bird. But just cleaning the cage where the bird is inside does not satisfy the bird. One must actually know the needs of the bird himself and also satisfy that need. So Srila Prabhupada says, what is the spirit soul's need? In other words, this example was making a connection of the bird in the cage to the spirit in the body. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desire for complete freedom. He wants to get out of here, this material world, and have complete freedom. Krishna has given everybody some amount of freedom. That freedom is there because Krishna himself is the supreme free personality. And we are parts and parcels of him. Therefore, if in quality we're like Krishna, then we would have some freedom also. Except that for us here, we've abused that freedom and wound up in jail, cosmic jail. And the problem is that we are in jail, and that's why we're suffering. The spirit is not getting the nourishment it needs. And so, by the Lord's mercy, he has sent his devotees to the world to connect with those who are tired of the world and want to get out and realize that there's something wrong with the world. And in this yuga, the main process is hearing and chanting, especially Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So Srila Prabhupada says that complete freedom of the soul is achieved when he meets the personality of Godhead. And this is also by the mercy of the spiritual master. There's a dormant affection for God within everyone, Srila Prabhupada says. So we have to engage ourselves in occupational engagements that will evoke our divine consciousness. The 9 principles of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead will invoke that happiness that will wake us up. Us means the souls, wake the soul up. Srila Prabhupada says it's possible by hearing and chanting of the divine activities. If we chant the Lord's name, we're talking about the Lord by name, therefore we will remember the Lord. We think about the Lord. When we remember the Lord, we will think about the Lord, we'll also act in favor of the Lord's wishes. Because that's what the soul becomes happy when we do. So any occupational activity, which is what was said in the translation, that doesn't help one to achieve attachment for hearing and chanting the transcendental message of Godhead is said to be simply a waste of time. So now it's a question of looking at what we do. What do we do daily? What takes most of our time? Have we been able to connect it with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, service to Him? Have we been able to? And if not, then we have some work to do, because it is only when we connect our activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that we will begin to be happy. And the happiness is internal happiness. It's not external. It is internal happiness, happiness to the soul. And also liberation of the soul follows. Other occupational duties, material duties, cannot give liberation to the soul. So even salvationists, those who say, oh, you do this, you believe you're saved, but they're not working to connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is not there. It's more mental. So activities that we do should all be connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And even if Prabhupada says, if one goes to Svagaloka, Indraloka, so much is there for sense gratification, still there will be no permanent abode for his hankering soul. The hankering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service. So then what is perfect devotional service? Well, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has talked about devotional service, which is in chapter 12, and has specifically mentioned those kind of things that when a person does, that they will be dear, they will become very dear to Krishna. So it seems that the smart thing to do is to find out what those things are, and to the extent that we can, with our minds and physical bodies, do those things. So Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, texts 13 and 14, Krishna lists a number of things that we should be at least mentally aware of. One, who is not envious. One, don't be envious, but rather than being envious, be a kind friend to all living entities. Why a kind friend to all living entities? At home, in the spiritual world, kindness is all around. All entities are kind to other entities because that's how you become loving to different entities. So one who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities. One who does not think himself a proprietor. Again, being a proprietor means we are the boss. Well, Krishna is the boss. He explains that in Bhagavad Gita. So we shouldn't think ourselves the controller, just like people are doing in this material world, trying to lord it, trying to control material nature. Devotees should not think that way. We should think that we are not proprietor, and a person that's free from false ego. Again, ego, like Gumaraj, Bhakti Maharaj made an acronym out of that, EGO, ego, edging God out, trying to push God out of the way and be the controller. One who is free from false ego, who is equal in happiness and distress. One who is equal in happiness and distress, because spiritual brings happiness. Material, there's sense gratification that sometimes we say we're happy with that. And then, of course, there's other kinds of situations that we don't like at all, which we call distress. But they're like the seasons, as Prabhupada describes. Winter and summer, they come and go. Sometimes it's very hot, sometimes it's very cold. Very, very few days in a year do we have weather that many people say, oh, this is nice. Well, because we're in jail. Srila Prabhupada explained, and Radha Maharaj has also talked about the same thing, that this place is designed so we won't be happy. If we begin to feel that this is a place not for us to ever be happy, we are in the right frame of mind, because the next thing is, how do I get to happiness? Well, if it's not going to be here, then where is it? And how do I get there? Those are the intelligent questions. So A person who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant to all kinds of things happen. Sometimes, in order to just keep from making things worse than they already are, you have to tolerate some things. Always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination. Engage in devotional service with determination. Why determination? Because sometimes challenges come, and we must go on despite the challenges. So, a person engaged in devotional service to Krishna and Krishna's devotees, his mind and intelligence fixed on me. Mind accepts and rejects, and mind should be used in such a way that the acceptance is helpful towards devotional service, and rejection is also helpful towards devotional service. In other words, like Rupa Goswami says, accept all things favorable towards devotional service and reject all things unfavorable. That's what the mind does. Accepting and rejecting. Sankalpa, vikalpa. So a person that does that, Sri Krishna says, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. In text 15 of chapter 12, Sri Krishna says, he by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone. He by whom no one is put into difficulty. In other words, a person that's careful how they relate to others, so that they don't necessarily give anybody a hard time or make them uncomfortable. He by whom no one is put into difficulty and who's not disturbed by anyone. That's the opposite. When somebody tries to disturb them, they're tolerant. Somebody's trying to disturb them, they find ways to avoid that situation, or there are ways to sometimes discuss the situation in such a way that the person that you're discussing with does not wind up being upset with you. Very, very, very important. It's not the end of the conversation that even matters so much, but the important thing is, at the end of the conversation, do I still have a good relationship with this person? Sometimes it takes listening to the other person's point of view and being tolerant enough to hold off your own point of view, because when you understand the other person and where they're coming from and what they're saying, that you'd be able to see how you can come up with ideas and come up with some way that you can understand each other and therefore end whatever mental situation or conflict that there is there. So one who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, that person is dear to me, Krishna says. My devotee, this is chapter 12, text 16. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, who is expert, without cares and free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. In other words, a person who works to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees, but is not attached to results of it. When we're not attached to the results of it, then our work is pure because it's meant for serving the devotees, serving Guru, serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We do it to the best of our abilities. That's expertise. Sometimes we know how to do some things, and unfortunately, I have to bring up a situation. I was working with a devotee in the temple kitchen at Gitanagri. This was quite a few years ago. And this person I knew hadn't been in Krishna consciousness that long. But it was, when you have devotees around and you have sadhu sangha, wonderful, and, does in fact affect your consciousness, and everybody's serving, so you join in and serve. Now, we were making pancakes, so it's breakfast time. And we were mixing the batter to get it ready to cook it. And So there was a part that I was saying that, well, maybe we should put in this more of this in the song because I'm looking at the quantity that we're making. And unfortunately, this devotee said, well, it doesn't matter. I said, why? I said, it's for devotees. It doesn't matter. And I was shocked to hear that. But it turns out that I was older, and therefore I used that kind of position to add a little more sugar and the other things that we wanted to put in. But it just shocked me. It shocked me that it's for devotees, it doesn't matter. We have to give our best to devotees. It should be exactly the opposite because Krishna knows everything. As a matter of fact, as my Guru Maharaj says, Krishna keeps a tight score. Everything we do, nothing is missed, and all prayers are also heard. Therefore, when we serve, we have to serve with, as it says here, expertise. The best that we know of, put it out for devotees. We don't strive for result in terms of how I want the thing to come out to be, but we put in the best and finish, and then Krishna takes care of the results. That kind of person is very dear to me, Krishna says. Bhagavad Gita 12:17. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, rejoice or grieves, laments nor desires. So one who neither rejoices nor grieves at the material level, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things. This is all at the material level. Such a devotee is very dear to me. So we are in a world of duality. Happiness and distress is there. Srila Prabhupada has put happiness in this position. Material happiness, that's sense gratification. One who neither rejoices nor grieves. Well, let's spend a little bit of time here because I know that lately we've been hearing things concerning some of our material families and this pandemic situation. And some people have in fact left their bodies. Some of the people who left their bodies are devotees. And much of that has happened, particularly in India, which is now facing rise in the cases of COVID-19, the coronavirus. Obviously, that is disturbing news for everybody that would hear it, whether they have family members there or not. We all feel some sort of disturbance because of our own emotional nature. So one who neither rejoices nor grieves, one who neither laments nor desires. Okay? So should we grieve for those people? The answer is yes. The reason to grieve, though, should not be the kind of reason that materialists use to grieve. First of all, hopefully we have done our homework trying to help the people who are family members to hear or connect to some extent with Krishna. That is an important function for devotees at this time on this planet. Krishna wants everyone to go back who is ready to go back. How do you get ready? You hear about Krishna. How do you hear about Krishna? Devotees introduce you to Krishna. And so that is something that we need to keep going all of the time. How we can help Krishna consciousness to be propagated. As a matter of fact, Srila Prabhupada categorized a first-class devotee. And he said the first-class devotee, sometimes, he has ways of making breaking it down so simply so that we can actually relate to it. Srila Prabhupada says a first-class devotee is a person who chants the minimum of 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, who obeys the regulated principles, and is looking and trying to come up with ways in order to improve service in the society. Different ways to enhance the propagation of Krishna consciousness. He called that a first-class devotee. So, Yes, we have to grieve. The reason being that we lose the association, at least temporarily, we lose association. Association is very important. So when a person who's a devotee leaves, that association is temporarily gone. We say temporarily because we leave, those who leave, we will meet again. We will meet again in the spiritual world. In fact, it's just a matter of moments that we'll meet in the spiritual world. For us, it's like lifetimes. But in the spiritual world, it's like moments that you will connect again and connect with our spiritual bodies. Not even these material bodies that give us all kinds of old age, disease, all kinds of problems. So one who neither rejoices nor grieves, and next that situation we talked about, of course, sadhusanga, that's important. Who laments or not laments, not laments nor desires material things, and who renounces both auspicious at the material level. Sometimes we categorize some things as auspicious. Of course, what we do in devotional service, that's always auspicious. But sometimes people say, oh, this I like, this one I don't like. This is based on where I was raised in my tradition. I do this, so it's auspicious, and I don't do this, it's inauspicious. Things that we do have to relate to Krishna consciousness culture. That's all that matters. So if we do that, then that devotee is dear to Krishna, he says. Text 18 and 19 translation together. One who is equal to friends and enemies. Very important point. Friends and enemies. So how does one become equal to friends and enemies? Equal to friends, well, the friendship, there's good relation. That's not difficult to relate, to understand. But enemies, well, hopefully we don't have enemies in terms of people we don't like. But we're not free from that because sometimes other people don't like us for one reason or another. Now, even if that is known by us, we don't react back, or we shouldn't react back by doing things that will make the other person uncomfortable. Enmity cannot be removed by ourselves because we cannot control what other people do. What we can do is our own activity. That's on us. So if we react well or act well towards everybody, then whether the person likes us or not, we are equal to them because our friends will act well. Our enemies, we also have to be respectful to them. The person, when I say enemies, are those who don't like us. So Sri Krishna continues, Sri Prabhupada translates, one who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, materially praised or not praised, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy. So a person who takes things in stride. So they are honored this time. All right. In fact, when they're honored, you go, the honor goes to my Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada or Sri Krishna or Lord Gauranga. In other words, they are the ones that make us able to function. All of the things that we do, and now we are, as devotees, being directed in the right direction to go back to Godhead. So the things that we do is from Sri Krishna by the mercy of Guru. By the mercy of Guru. Guru is 100% Krishna consciousness. Their business is Krishna consciousness. What they teach us is what we do or what we're supposed to do. And if we try hard, we'll do it. And if we're not able to do it properly, we can get help too from those who are experienced, who've been in it in Krishna consciousness for a while. So all of these are there for us to grow. And so a person who is honored or not honored, they don't care about it. As a matter of fact, in Bhagavad Gita, again in chapter 13, text 8, Krishna says, humility. Among a number of things that he said, the qualities of a devotee, humility. Srila Prabhupada in the purport says that humility is not hankering to be honored. A person who is not hankering to be honored is a humble person. There are other qualities that obviously connect with humility, but fame and infamy, happiness and distress, equipoise in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, all of these things happen here in the material world. Who's always free from contaminating association? Lord Chaitanya was asked that question. Who is a Vaishnava? Vaishnava is a person who does not associate with non-Vaishnavas. Why is non-Vaishnava association contaminating? Because they're not going to talk about Krishna. They're going to talk about material things. They're going to talk about things that will not let us be able to get out of this area, this jail. And if we keep with that, then of course, at the end of our lives, we wasted our time. So, free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything. Always silent. Silence does not mean we don't talk, but silence means we do not talk about things that are irrelevant and unimportant. Again, this has been described by Srila Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita. Satisfied with anything, in other words, they don't hanker for things. If we try to, let's put something in perspective, if we try to serve Krishna by wanting things that can be used by ourselves and devotees to serve Guru and Krishna and the devotees, that's not hankering. That's how our mind is in the right place then, because there's growth. Growth is there, the world changes, and if we change it and we change along with it, we should change in such a way that we are still able to serve Krishna and his devotees. And sometimes it does demand having to get some things, new things. Sometimes it demands having to fix some things that have gone bad. Those are all important things to do because they are for serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead in bhakti. So that we should do. Sri Krishna says, the person who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. So, doesn't care for any residence. Wherever they get to live, their first thing is, can I serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead here? What arrangements do I have to make in order to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead? First thing on their minds. Better than that even is not only having the deity of a Lord or a picture of a deity of a Lord in the house, but have the understanding that Supreme Personality of Godhead owns this place, and I'm a servant, keeping this place going for the pleasure of the Lord. And when you invite devotees to have programs in your house too, then of course, for the pleasure of the devotees too. So a person who is fixed in knowledge and who's engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. So Krishna is saying the conclusion of all knowledge is that one should engage in loving devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. In fact, in another part in the Shastra, it said that a person who understands that is a person who does that is understood to have gotten to the conclusion of all the Vedas. Because the conclusion of the Vedas is Savai Punsam Parot Harmo Yato Bhakti Ahoksaje. That the occupational duty of a person is that which pertains to connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, service to him and his devotees. And that service should not have any kind of motivation in terms of wanting something out of it and should never be stopped. Apratiyata. So Prabhupada explained that pratiyata is impediment. Apratiyata, there shouldn't be any impediment in the way. And finally, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, text 20, those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service, along with the conditions that Srila Prabhupada has translated, Krishna has said, and those who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. Krishna says that. Those who follow this imperishable path. Now, the Muni also has said, when we do devotional service, if we don't make it back to Godhead this lifetime, the next life, we may start physically small and grow like we did the previous life, but our spiritual credits are never wiped out. We continue from there, so it is cumulative in that way. So it's imperishable. The imperishable path of devotional service. It's also imperishable because that's all that's done in the spiritual world. And the spiritual world is permanent, and the activity is devotional service. Therefore, devotional service can never perish. To those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, serving, convinced that that's the right thing to do, and make Krishna consciousness and Krishna himself, say the same, Krishna is absolute, the supreme goal, they are very, very dear to me. So Krishna has described in devotional service, that title, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, what makes a devotee dear to him. So hopefully with that, we will begin to look seriously at the things that we have been doing, what we have not been doing properly. Krishna has this listed all of them, the consciousness we're supposed to have or not have, all of that's also explained. And if we do the right things based on what Krishna himself has explained, then we'll become dear to Krishna. And therefore, we won't waste so much time as this text, Srimad Bhagavatam, is pointing out that occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are so much useless labor if they don't connect with traction for the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the message today. Whatever we do, connect it to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if we don't know how in our regular jobs, at least contribute some of the money that we get, compensation, to helping in the activities for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Parikshit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I really enjoyed that class so much. Very clear, full of examples. I loved how you tied in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And thank you so much.
Krishna's mercy, Guru's mercy.
Srimad Bhagavatam is so clear on this point about how, just kicking out all kind of material dharma, material consciousness, and really just focusing on, our spiritual consciousness, our real identity. Thank you for driving that point.
Krishna's mercy. We all need to hear it, actually. Me most on my own purification too. Hare Krishna.
Let's see if there's any devotees have any questions.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Mother Vatsala.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, my humble pranam to you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for the class. Detailed discussions, as Dronacharya says. You have quoted a lot of verses from Bhagavad Gita to keep us to have a clear view and equal consideration for enemies as well as friends. It's very nice to hear about. It's very difficult sometimes, but we have to keep on thinking about that to keep our views in balance. And I had a question on, I don't know whether I wrote it down incorrectly. I wrote it down as soul expands to finish the task. I don't know whether the soul is expanding or our Krishna consciousness is expanding.
Okay. Yeah. I did in fact mention something to that effect. The point we're making is now the soul is in our physical bodies, because it's explained to us, it's in the heart area along with the super soul. And the soul is tiny. The soul is atomic. Yeah. When it comes time that a person who has been acting in Krishna consciousness now earns the mercy of the Lord by the effort that they put in, and after leaving the body, the soul now is being granted by Krishna to go back to the spiritual world, the soul expands then. The soul expands then. See, it's atomic now, but it expands at that time to assume its Siddha Swarup, the original position. The original position is not atomic. Okay, and the other thing is that sometimes we have difficulty saying, well, how does the soul expand? Well, the soul is not material. The soul is not material. Okay, so everything that's there, even though it's in this atomic shape, not atomic shape, but atomic size for this lifetime here, or other lifetimes if we don't make it this lifetime, it's not like that normally. It will expand back in the spiritual world. It is, in fact, in its own larger, much larger size than this atomic size. So the atomic size is actually part of the imprisonment too. Not mentioned very much. It is part of the imprisonment. When the soul comes into the womb, when the egg is fertilized, the egg is very small for the woman, then the soul is also in there as that size. It's part of our situation where we don't get to use the soul the way we do in the spiritual world. When we're in the material world, it's the material body that we use. And the soul, even though that gives consciousness, it's in this atomic size. But when it is free and going back to the spiritual world, it doesn't stay in the atomic size anymore. It in fact expands.
Prabhu, isn't it not soul indivisible? It is not hurt by anything, fire, indivisible. It cannot be cut into pieces.
Yes.
Okay. So the soul is actually the consciousness then.
The consciousness is from the soul, yes. We are
So
alive because of the soul.
body.
Yeah. We are alive because of the soul. So consciousness comes from the soul. The physical body is just it's a machine.
Oh, I have a problem understanding this principle, Prabhu. Well, we have read in this chapter, I think chapter 2 about the soul or Atma.
Yes.
It is, it sticks into my mind. It's a minute. We have read about the size of it. And how can it, I'm actually visualizing the soul expanding. I know when it goes to Krishna, anything can happen, but I have a problem understanding this tiny, minute part and parcel of Krishna, that soul, how can it take a Vishwarup, like a more than what we are imagining. So from that thing is real.
It's a good question. A number of things are beyond our mind to be able to figure out. There's a lot of things, believe me, you just asked one question. But how does the Lord support all this gigantic material universe? Again, some things are beyond us, beyond our ability to understand. But the way it's been explained, as we read and also hear from Guru, is that the soul does in fact expand. So that's the spiritual world is humongous, and and so not like little particles moving around. No, this is actually the shape is all there. The shape is all there. Actually, there's more to it because if we want to take different shapes for different services, the soul can do that also. It's not flexible, but it does in fact expand, according to what I was taught.
Thank you, Prabhu. I have another question. If you have time, would I be allowed to ask that question, please?
I think so.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. When we are dealing with the commoners, we shouldn't really claim ourselves devotees, really. We haven't done so much, especially me. I have not really. I love Krishna. I know, as far as I'm concerned, I do services at home and do take care of the deities and all. But still, I do come across a lot of other religions. The other day, I have a very good friend, Muslim friend. We have been friends for 40 years. And sometimes she questions about, how people are fighting in India. They don't want to open the mask. And as a Vaishnava, how do we explain to them? I don't want to hurt her feelings. We have been friendship. The friendship goes on without any religious fanaticism.
Okay.
I love her kind-hearted nature because she comes from Islam. She worships. I think they do worship 4-5 times namaz. So and when I went to her house to visit her, I took Krishna with me, little Krishna with me. I offered prasadam. I cooked something on my own and offered it to her. She accepted it. Both husband and wife are Muslims. So if we, and then recently, because of COVID-19, a lot of things were happening. She was telling why people are still hating us and why things are happening in India. They don't want to open the mosque, whereas Hindu people are opening their temples. And how do I, tell her as a devotee of the Lord? So how do I explain things to her? Sometimes it's very difficult for other people. I'm friends with a lot of different groups. So how do I explain to them that it is not the position of Krishna or any other Vaishnava? No, true believing. If you believe in God, you cannot find the differentiation. You should find the unity, commonality between different groups of people.
Very
So,
good point.
Please.
You're telling me, because I didn't know that Muslims, the Muslim mosque is not being allowed to open.
She was complaining.
Yeah, I was complaining about that, which is, in one sense, there is reason for her to complain about that. Now, I will not speculate. I'll just say, first of all, there obviously is a lot of politics in this whole situation.
Yeah.
Political decisions are being made, and so some of them good, some of them not good. We just find out from the results from the decisions that are made. How is the worship like? That's the first question. How is the worship in the mosque like? Are they keeping 6 feet apart from each other? Do they want to do that? The disease does in fact spread if some of the basic precautions are not taken. So all of these have to be answered from one religion to another in terms of how they perform their religious rites. And now the point is, if a person is dead, they can't perform any religious activity. Therefore, it becomes important now to take the steps that make sure that the physical body is still alive, it's still functioning, the soul is still in the body. And so if some of the activities that are being done now are not going to be helpful to keep people healthy, then the government does in fact have a right to suggest, or even sometimes even impose, because governments sometimes they have the power to do that, to impose some restriction. So it comes down to how the physical worship actually is done.
Prabhu was talking about Kumbh Mela, where everybody was gathering. There is a Triveni Shangam.
Yeah. Well,
that's what, everybody is gathering everywhere. Then how come it should have a religious freedom and they don't give us? And she was pointing out to me because I'm a Hindu and a worshipper of Krishna. She was telling, I said, I have no idea. I don't do that.
It's hard for me to kind of, not knowing all the facts, to come up with answers of that nature. But the one thing one can do that nobody can take away from you is worship at home. That nobody can take from you. Hopefully we haven't got to that point. Hopefully we won't get to that point either, so it will have to be their representatives taking on the government and making a big, push and making some adjustment in their worship also, so that they can go on without the disease spreading among Muslims themselves from how they worship. That's what's coming to me. I don't know all the facts. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trying Targets.
Hands are up now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll see if we can get everybody in. It's getting a little late.
I'll try to make the answer short.
Ram Sham Prabhu.
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Lecture. The session was very, very wonderful, Prabhuji, as usual. Your session is very, very energetic. Yeah.
Krishna's
Prabhuji, Prabhuji, I was trying to understand from the verse, like the word is the Biswaksena, so that was troubling me. So just wanted to clarify on that. As far as what I know is like Biswaksena was the Commander-in-Chief for Lord Vishnu. So why, I mean, here, like Commander-in-Chief of Lord Vishnu, as a Visvaksena is used, representing who is the primary portion of the Lord. So is he the representative for the Lord here, or instead of direct Lord, Vishnu or Krishna, or Krishna, expansion or something like that? If you can put light, which will clarify me.
Okay, very good question. Srila Prabhupada has been asked similar questions before. And I'll get to his answer, but this one, Vishvaksena, he said the personality of Godhead, and then he put plenary portion there. Plenary portion of the personality of Godhead. That's how he translated it. There have been quite a few times that those who know Sanskrit have in fact brought some things up to Srila Prabhupada's attention and says, but in Sanskrit, it's not actually translated this way, or this personality is playing this particular role, and it looks like you have translated it in a different way. Srila Prabhupada's response says, yes, I have, and that's my expertise. That's how he answered it. In other words, he wants the devotee to think about what he's translating in a certain direction. And gurus can do that. Gurus, yeah, bona fide gurus can do that. They know the mentality of the person, of the persons that are going to read, because the way the world is now, therefore they translate it in a certain way. And there are many, 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 many instances. Sometimes the word sa, which is he, but he will actually put rather than just leave it as the pronoun, he will go to the person and name all of that, more about that, but yeah, to bring the point out. So in this case, Vishvaksena, he is relating it to a plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's exactly what he meant, and that's exactly what he wrote. So sometimes, yeah, they may have different ways of looking at it, but Srila Prabhupada wanted us to look at it that way.
Okay. So he is representing the Lord.
Yes, in this case, the plenary portion of the Lord, yeah.
That clarifies. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So,
Shuman, Mother Shuman.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very nice class. You very beautifully, you very clearly explained the meaning of slokas of chapter 12, some of the slokas very nicely. But I have been chanting those slokas without knowing the meaning. Is it useful? Without meaning, if you keep chanting the slokas?
Without knowing the meaning? Well, two ways to look at it. First of all, Srila Prabhupada has been kind enough to have the meanings there. So sometimes we learn the Sanskrit because, well, of course, it is the main language now that speak, even the Devas speak Sanskrit. Spiritual world, Sanskrit, Srila Prabhupada learned Sanskrit, and Sanskrit is an old and language that actually gets to the soul. So that's there, all that's been explained. Is there benefit when we don't know the translation? The answer is yes. The translation is for the mind. The Sanskrit words is for the soul. That's the difference. So yes, it goes into the soul. We connect the soul with spirituality through the particular, that language. So yes, there's benefit, but when we get to know the understanding of it, now we're connecting our minds, our intelligence to the soul, and our physical bodies are being used in service now. So then we understand it from the physical body, that the subtle mind understands it. Then of course we know what we're talking about, and it helps us to now do devotional service with knowledge. With knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Hare
It
Krishna.
definitely, yeah, there's definitely help. Even if we just
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Parikshit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you all to all the devotees that have
Thank you.
today, your contributions, your listening.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Everything.
Nice class.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Krishna conscious day. If you want more nectar, tune in at 5 o'clock. we'll have a Bhagavad Gita reading. Balabhadra Prabhu will be leading that.
Okay.
Please all meditate on this shloka today, because
Okay.
it affects us. It really, this is one of those shlokas we really want to keep in our consciousness. So again, Parikshit Prabhu, our gratitude to you. Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripasindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Very
Thank
nice.
you.
Thank you. We enjoyed it. Please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So much.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Mercy.
Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Prabhu.
Thank you so
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, so much for wonderful. Hare Krishna.
Krishna's mercy. Guru's mercy.